Hi there, I'm Alicia Malone. Welcome back to TCM, where we've been celebrating the 30th anniversary of Milestone Films. And joining me once again are the two founders of the company, Dennis Duras and Amy Heller. Welcome back.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
And something that I so appreciate about Milestone Films is your focus on distributing and restoring films made by and about African American filmmakers, female filmmakers, filmmakers from the LGBTQ communities, filmmakers from the Native American communities. And Amy, this really seems to fit with your motto of we like to mess with the canon.
Well, the motto actually came after the practice, but essentially, when we were beginning to work with Charles Burnett and working on some of the great films by African-American filmmakers and filmmakers from the LGBTQ community, we realized that we could actually choose to find films that represented our own beliefs and our own political and social and historical perspective, and make sure always that they are films that are themselves fantastic cinema. That's always been our first criteria. But it's been an incredible honor to be able to work with some of these great filmmakers and to represent these wonderful films. A challenge and an honor, both.
It's so rewarding for all of us film lovers who get to see films made about communities that we may not hear from otherwise. The next film that we're showing tonight is called No Maps on My Taps. It's from 1978, a wonderful documentary centering on three Black tap dancers. And I have to say, Dennis, this taught me a lot about the history of tap dancing and its connections with Black culture.
I was a dance history minor at Ohio University, and I programmed this film in 1979, not knowing anything about it. And not only did I fall in love with it, I watched it 6 or 7 times that day. On 16mm, I kept taking it back to the projection room and watching it again and again. The director, George Nierenberg, really can express his love for the people, for the art, for everything about African-American culture. And this film is one of his best.
And it's hard not to love the personalities we see in the film, Amy, with Bunny Briggs, Chuck Green, the Sandman. I mean, these guys and their stories really get into your heart. And they're great dancers, too.
Oh, amazing. The dancing is so fabulous in this film. And it is great to feel like you know the artists and then see them perform these magical dance feats. And this film really did relaunch a whole interest in tap dancing, which it continues to this day. We're big tap dance fans, and we love to go tap dance. So, it's an opportunity to spend some time with three amazing men and their art, which is pretty special.
So this really offers an alternate view of film history because they talk a lot about some Black performers who did make a crossover into the film industry.
Yeah, well, of course, tap dancing goes back to the 1820s, a combination of African dancing and Irish jigs and a whole lot of other things, but it really was African-American culture in the 19th century, and it wasn't until really Bojangles Robinson that it became more popular around the world. And Fred Astaire came, and he's one of the greatest tap dancers of all time, of course. So it did become a universal language for many different cultures, but it still retained this dedication in the African-American culture that was unique to its own world. I mean, the film shows on the streets of Harlem. You could just go and have a contest with somebody on the corner.
This is a wonderful documentary, so let's take a look from 1978. Here is No Maps on My Taps. That was No Maps on My Taps, and joining me once again to talk about the film is Dennis Duras and Amy Heller, the co-founders of Milestone Films. So No Maps on My Taps was directed by George T. Nierenberg, who also did another film that you have worked on called Say Amen Somebody, and that was about gospel singing. So Nierenberg is a white director, but he's able to go into these communities and really get the subjects to open up. So Amy, what is his special magic, do you think?
He spent a long time in the community of tap dancers and then in the gospel community, really becoming friends and getting to know all the people that he was going to be filming and getting to really know their stories so that when he brought the camera crew in, they were comfortable with him and he was comfortable with them. And then he's just he has a wonderful way of filming performances, which is part of what makes the film so great, and a wonderful way of just sort of setting the stage and letting the musicians and dancers just kind of tell their own story. Makes it pretty special. So it's been a real joy to work on these.
It sounds like you were both fans of George's work before working with him, before you set up Milestone Films. So, Dennis, how did this film in particular come to you guys?
Oh, this is a good story.
You'll be the judge of that.
Duart Labs was closing, and the archivists were going through it, trying to see what was left over and what could be saved and what could be salvaged. I mean, it was a huge vault. And I was going with an archivist from the New York Public Library, and I came across the negative for No Maps on My Taps. And again, one of my favorite films, so I got George's number and I called him up and said, you got to get this negative out. It's, going to be thrown away if you don't pick it up. And he said, would you like to distribute it? And I said, okay, how about say amen somebody too? And he said, okay. And that's really how it happened.
That's such a great story. And it also underscores why companies like yours are so important to Amy to save these films that would otherwise have been lost forever.
We used to say nitrate won't wait, but all these formats won't wait. So it's really important that we really turn our attention to the whole history of cinema and to keep it alive and preserved.
It is absolutely vital work, and we're going to see that again in the documentary, the scripted documentary that we're playing next from 1961. It's called The Exiles, and this is a really fascinating scripted doc about a group of Native Americans in Los Angeles in the 1950s. And Dennis, I have to say, watching this film, it made me realize how few films we have that show Native Americans in urban environments. And that's why, part of the reason why it's such essential viewing.
Yeah, it's something that we didn't realize at the time we acquired it, but we started showing it and we started getting phone calls from different tribe members, and different tribes desperately wanted to show this because this is how they saw their uncles and aunts and cousins in Los Angeles or in New York or in one of the cities. And it's not the John Ford view of Native Americans. It's their view of Native Americans, a real view that they've experienced. And Kent McKenzie was able to capture it.
Well, we are all so grateful for the work that Milestone Films does. Congratulations on 30 years. And thank you so much for joining us, Dennis Duros and Amy Heller.
Thank you so much. And thanks to TCM. We could never have kept doing this for 30 years without working with you guys. It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for Dennis, Amy, and myself tonight. But stay watching TCM right now, because up next is the documentary we were talking about, The Exiles from 1961. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.